Welcome to podcast number 58 for Thanks for Your Service and our first podcast for 2023. Our focus is on historical topics relating to the Australian military. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Just search for Thanks for Your Service. Our website is www.thanksforyourservice.net and you can also email us at info@thanksforyourservice.net. During the January school holidays, I took the family down to Williamstown in Melbourne to visit a unique historical floating museum. This is part one of a two-part podcast. We're down at Gem Pier in Williamstown in Melbourne, and we have come aboard the HMAS Castlemaine, a floating museum, and joining us to take us through the ship is Dick Budzieny. Dick, many thanks for joining us. Castlemaine or Castlemaine? What's the correct pronunciation?
I've always said Castlemaine. I've been to the town of Castlemaine and they insist it's Castlemaine.
It is Castlemaine, okay. Now, what sort of ship is the Castlemaine?
Look, it's they called it the minesweeper, but in actual fact, they were a corvette. And a corvette is just a small escort vessel, never designed to fight big battles or anything like that. It was designed to escort convoys around. It moved troops around the Pacific Ocean. It did that long, hard, sort of unglamorous bit of the war that didn't get much into the newspapers, but they did an incredibly important job.
Can you give us an overview of her history?
Well, she was built here in Williamstown in 1941-42 and was commissioned in about August the 8th, 1942. And that she left here and then went up to Sydney to have guns and things fitted and that. And that's where the first bit of damage ever happened to the Castlemaine. She was steaming up Sydney Harbour at night and promptly collided with the Manly ferry.
Goodness.
And there was a bit of a hole in the side and fingers were pointed at everybody. But in the end, it was all sorted out. She left there and then basically off to New Guinea. And she did a lot of work around New Guinea, did several runs between Darwin and Timor to support the army there. And on one of those Timor runs, she was with a ship called the Armidale. And it was actually called Operation Hamburger, of all things, and that. And they were together with another little ship and that. They were dropping off and taking troops off Timor. And but on the way back and leaving, Armidale had to go back. And Castlemaine was diverted to look for a shot-down Air Force flyer. But because Armidale had to go back, she was caught by 14 Japanese aircraft and ended up on the bottom of the Timor Sea. Except for the little diversion for the Castlemaine, if she'd remained in company with Armidale, there is no doubt Castlemaine would have went to the bottom.
And the Armidale is famous in respect that the VC,
the Victoria Cross,
was just recently awarded to Teddy Sheen in the last year or two. I can't remember the exact date. So.
And when you think about it, that Castlemaine was probably the last friendly ship that Teddy Sheen ever saw. Yeah. And the week before they sailed, they had like a sports day in Darwin. I mean, you've got to have a bit of a break every now and again. And they played cricket and football and all of that lot. And a week later, Castlemaine is back in Darwin and that. And we've got a diary from a guy who was on the Castlemaine. And he was saying, oh, something's wrong. You know, Armidale hasn't come back. She's late and that sort of thing. And then a couple of days later in his entry, the Kalgoorlie, one of the other corvettes, came in. She's carrying the Armidale survivors, and his comment was, "There's not many of them." So it's quite sort of moving. It really is.
And then post Operation Hamburger, what did?
Look, she continued to work around New Guinea. She did convoy and escort duty, Northern Australia. Came back to Australia for a couple of refits and that, and then at the end of the war, at the surrender, Castlemaine and a bunch of other minesweepers went up to Hong Kong to do minesweeping. When the war ended, the world's oceans were full of mines. And Castlemaine and several other Australian minesweepers, they swept the entrance to Hong Kong Harbour, all along the China coast and all of that sort of thing. And it was always one of those things where the Victoria's fleet wants to enter the harbour, but you go, but we need a minesweeper to help us in.
In terms of operations around New Guinea in the Pacific, what was a normal complement?
95.
Right.
There were 5 officers and 90 sailors.
Okay, and for our listeners then, can you give us an idea in terms of the size of the ship? It's not a big ship, but it's not a small ship.
No, look, Castlemaine weighs in at about 1,000 tonnes. One of the modern Anzac frigates that were built here at Williamstown, about 4,500 tonnes. But by comparison, the Tassie Ferry, the Spirit of Tasmania, which now lives down at Geelong, 28,000 tonnes. So you're looking at 1,000. It's a little ship. It's a little ship.
How did she end up here at Gem Pier?
After the war, she was brought back to Australia and she went into a reserve and she got moved around and was parked in Geelong for a while, back here at Williamstown. Then she ended up down at Western Port Bay at the Navy base, HMAS Cerberus, and she was a training ship, and for engine room artificers, and they did seamanship training and damage control training. But after a while, she became unrepresentative of ships. She's old and that sort of thing, and she was really let go. And anyway, the reason she got picked up and saved, there was an organisation that was formed that was called Save the Cerberus, which is the ship, the Monitor, that sank down at Black Rock. Yes. Those guys got together and they had some pretty important people in it. And but after they had a bit of a look, they said, we're not going to be able to get there. The cost and that. And then one or a couple of them said, what about having a look at the Castlemaine? And that's what they did. And when they went down and had a look, the ship was a gutted wreck and a hulk, completely stripped out and rust. Oh boy. And she was gifted by the Commonwealth to the Maritime Trust of Australia, brought up here, and then the restoration started. But certainly the guys who started it, some of them must have looked at it and said, what have we done to ourselves? But the initial work, I always just admire for what they took on. It is just incredible, really.
When can people visit here?
Open on weekends and public holidays, and we do group tours, on weekdays.
And where can people find out more about the castle?
On our website.
All right, well, let's take a look. I'll follow you.
Yep.
So we've come on board on the gangway. We've made a left turn, so we're going to head up to the forward of the ship. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what area are we going into now?
Look, this area here, set up a bit as a museum, during the war period was known as the mess deck. This room was home for 70 sailors lived in this room. And when I mean lived in this room, bedroom, dining room, lounge room, playroom, this is what you got. Little benches and tables along both sides of the walls for that, to eat dinner at, write letters, play cards. Lockers for their clothes down the middle, and for beds, they all slept in hammocks. And the handles up here, they're for hanging on to swing yourself in and out of the hammocks and that.
So on the ceiling of the mess deck, there are a number of black hooks. And
the hooks that they attach the hammocks to, and the little handles are used to swing yourself up in and out of them. So, and unair conditioned. We've got a little bit of ventilation. Castlemaine spent a lot of the war around wonderful places like Darwin, Timor, the Philippines. It was hot. It was oppressive, really.
I mean, even today it's Sunday in January in Melbourne, so we're 33 degrees today, but also you had the humidity.
But very few of the officers and crew on these corvettes during the war, what they call permanent forces sailors, they were all in the what they call the reserve, the volunteer reserve, or hostilities only. In other words, I'm a civvy, the war broke out, I'm going to help fight the war, I'll sign up, put a uniform on, fight the war. When it's over, off I go. I've done my bit. Yes,
So we're looking at the wireless office here. So that's the main comms area for the ship. Was it manned by another rank or an officer?
No. There was radio operators were there, but it was manned permanently. Yes, Teddy Sheehan display, and the Sheehan family have been on board. And they did donate us a full set of the replica medals.
So what we're looking at is a display about Teddy Sheen, who
Teddy
was awarded
Sheen, yes.
the
Victoria
VC
Cross,
in the last 2 years. When was the date? 2020. So
Yes,
yeah, two years ago,
yes, yeah.
for his action on HMAS Armidale, which again was a Corvette, very similar
And
to this one.
they're on the mission together. Yes, yeah. And look, up to the bridge.
Okay, so we've come up from the mess deck.
Yeah, we've got the captain's cabin.
Yes.
And he had his cabin just below the bridge because he could be needed at any particular time. So, yeah.
So we've gone up from the mess deck, we've come up one level.
One
and we're now
level,
looking at
and we're at the commanding officer's cabin.
Right.
And as you can see, quite well set up and that sort of thing. And one of the main methods of communication, voice pipes.
Yeah.
And so that somebody up there on the bridge could yell, "Captain, sir, we need you up here right away."
So within his cabin, obviously, there's a voice pipe connected to the wall, and that was his main method of communication to other areas of the ship. Yeah.
And just in case, one next to the bunk.
One next to his bunk.
Yes,
so we're looking at an area. I mean, it's not, from a space perspective, it's about probably 3 or 4 meters by probably 2 or 3 meters again.
Yep.
He's got a bunk in here. He's got his own dining table. And did he? I was reading that in terms of the wardroom, did the commanding officer usually eat with the officers, or was
he normally ate with it? It was that sort of tradition that the captain was a little bit sort of on his own a little bit, and he was invited to the wardroom, but it'd be a very silly wardroom.
Yeah.
It did not invite Captain Sir, particularly since he did your performance reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're leaving the commanding officer's cabin.
And he actually ended up with a little ensuite. See that little width there?
Oh, yeah.
You got there?
Yeah.
His ensuite's in there.
All right, so within the cabin, there's a small little door off to the right-hand side if we're looking forward, and that's his ensuite.
That's his ensuite, yeah.
Right, so fully self-contained.
Chart room for the navigator.
Right, so so we're still on the same level as the commanding officers, and we're now looking
and we have the chart room. Which was the navigator. So, full of all the charts and that, his sextant. There was an echo singer in there for checking the water level under the ship. He could bunk down in there, but he had a cabin down after that. But sometimes the navigator would say, "Hey, we're in waters. We might need you at some time. You can doss yourself down there so we can get in touch with you quickly."
Yep.
We have the radar room there.
And this is just opposite the chart room now. So
the radar room. That is the World War II radar equipment.
Right.
No chips, no printed circuit boards, all valve. Circuitry, and it was actually a very, very hot room because the valves created a fair bit of heat. This room actually started off as a commanding officer's bathroom, okay, and his cabin went right across there. Radar arrived, big, bulky, and there were 2 sets and that, including part of it that had to live out there, and it was like, well, where do we put it? So the captain lost his bathroom. He got a little ensuite, and so the captain's bathroom turned into the radar room.
So when the ship was first commissioned in 1942,
no radar.
No radar. So this
it came along later.
Fitting after it.
Yes.
And who would normally staff this?
They had sailors that were specially trained to use radar, but don't forget at that time radar was brand new. These people weren't only learning; they were finding out what it could do and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yes. Anyway.
All right, so we're going to go up another level.
Up another level to the bridge.
Up to the bridge, okay. So we're climbing a ladder again to the bridge, which is above the commanding officer's cabin. Okay. All right, here we are, Dick. So
yes.
All right.
Yeah, basically the bridge is where the whole ship was operated. It was navigated, fought from. That's where all the orders were given to operate the ship and that. And steering wheel there and that. And a sailor steered the ship. An officer gave the orders, and he would say, steer 045, 090, and that's what you would do.
Yep.
Yes,
So the bridge it's reasonably roomy. It's
look, yes.
Again, 3 metres by 4 or 5 by 3 again. In the middle of it is obviously the wheel,
yes,
and the compass, etc. And you always had an officer of the watch.
Look, there'd always be a couple of sailors here, officer of the watch, maybe a couple of, and you'd have lookouts on either side, and what they call signalmen as well to do the flag signals. And the little box that's over there, it's called ASTIC, and it eventually ended up being called sonar. Okay. So guys sat in there with a headset on, and it was just like a World War II movie. You heard the ping, ping, ping.
So what we're looking at is in the front right-hand section of the bridge, there's a small little, it's almost a little compartment, and it's got an operator's hutch.
Yes.
And this is where the sonar, again,
the sonar operator. Yes, yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And again, sonar was this a post-commissioning fit?
No, it was on there from day one.
Right.
Look, they were always designed to chase submarines. Yes. Castlemaine here as well. When it was built, it had a roof on the bridge, the back wasn't on there.
Okay.
We had to put it back on there because if we didn't every Saturday morning, there'd be nothing left.
Yeah.
Williamstown's pretty good. So you'd walk directly out onto the flag deck.
Okay.
Some of them were open bridges, which would have been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the ship had a gyro compass, which is very, very accurate, but you always had your backup magnetic compass. But a magnetic compass, depending on where you were on the world, where it's telling you north is, no, it's not really. It's not true north. It could be over there. So they could always correct it and that. But to reduce the effect of the ship's steel on the magnetic compass, if you look at the floor there, the whole bridge is made from brass.
Oh, okay.
Brass. The wonderful thing about the brass and the restoration of the ship, brass didn't rust.
All right, now we're walking out of the
back
of
of the bridge, and we're on what they call the flag deck. And on the flag deck, one of the things on it is up your mast there, you've got all the flag bins, okay? And all the flags that were, if you have a look behind you there, all of those. So if the captain came out and said to the signalman, send me a signal, I want the convoy to turn port or something like that, he'd convert it into flag signals. He'd pull a halyard down and go, clip, 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 up and go, and hopefully everybody saw it and would you do the right thing.
So what we're looking at just on the flag deck is just a small poster indicating all the different flags that were available for all the signals, etc. Okay.
And over there, there's that's an Ehrlichen gun.
All right. So we're still on the flag deck, but we're on the port side of the ship. And keep going on about the gun.
Yeah, and it's a 20mm machine gun. It could fire nearly 200 rounds a minute, so it could get rid of a lot of bullets. And that was the type of gun that Teddy Sheehan was in when he died on the Armadale.
Absolutely. And that famous painting of him.
Yes,
okay.
Initially, in the design of the ship, the armament chain, up here there were only light machine guns.
Right.
And the Ehrlichen gun was down there where the Bofors go. But as the war went along, they upgraded the weapons, and the Ehrlichen gun, one there, one over there, and a Bofors gun went down there, which is a 40mm gun.
Right, and these guns are primarily anti-aircraft.
And look, you could use them against. You could use them against, Japanese barges. If they were landing troops on a beach, because in New Guinea you can go in very close. Because of the depth of the water, and the army guys could say, "Hey, look, we're having a problem with pillboxes and snipers and that thing. Can you guys fix it for us?"
And the explanation post indicates that it had a range of about 6,000 yards, so nearly 5.5 kilometres.
But you could fire that far. But when you were firing that far, you're really sure the bullets are going to go to the right place.
It might at least keep it down.
You're looking at the main mast there. And on the platform that's up there, you've got a big searchlight.
Okay.
And the big bin that's up on top, that's one of the radar antennas. Radar antennas in those days were nowhere near as robust and waterproof as today's. So that radar antenna ended up in a big bin, which is very distinctive. And right up the top there, you've got the other radar antenna. And lo and behold, yes, they did have a crow's nest.
Okay, all right.
And a sailor would climb up there with binoculars. Some people were good crow's nest people. Some people could not do it. You can imagine little ship. If you're down there, you're rolling around a little bit. If you're up there,
you're rolling around a lot.
Some people, no.
Okay.
No.
All right.
All right, anyway, what we'll do is we'll pop down here.
So this time we're going to go down from the flag deck.
Yep.
And we're going down onto the main deck of the ship. And Dick, now we're on the main deck. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we'll go up. We'll go up to the what they call the forecastle.
Okay, so we're going forward again.
Yep. Most prominent, I think, here is the main armament of the ship, and it was a 4-inch gun. In other words, it fired a bullet that was 100 millimetres in diameter. It was completely and utterly hand operated. We've got it locked up because we've got the warnings up there, but you can move it. One guy got in there, he made it go up and down.
Yep.
Another guy, he got in there and he made it go round.
Right.
Okay. And you had a line of people with the bullets, and it was all hand-loaded like that.
In terms of a gun crew, how many then? At least.
Oh, look, you probably had 2 there, plus a guy who controlled it all, and you probably had another 4 or 5 people bringing ammunition up. It had a range of nearly 4 to 5 miles, but hitting something 4 to 5 miles away,
Good luck.
you're on a little rolling ship and that sort of thing. But yeah.
How was it aimed?
Through some sights that were on there.
Okay.
There was nothing really sophisticated. So like I said, you could fire 5 miles, but hitting something 5 miles away was...
Good luck.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're turning around and we're going to go back down to...
That's a thing called a paravane. I almost need a picture. What they did is you'd lift them over the side of the ship. They could make a little crane there, and you put them out, and you put steel wires on them, and they'd actually move out from the side of the ship. Because if you happen to enter a minefield, what the idea was that the wire would push the mines away from the side of the ship. Unfortunately, if you hit the mine nose on, it was all over. And they didn't like using them because if you put them out, you're then restricting the manoeuvrability of the ship. Okay. Anyway, look, we'll continue on down this way.
All right, so we're heading towards the...
Stern. Yeah, the ship's boats. This one here is what they call a 27-foot Montague whaler.
Right. So just for our listeners, we're about halfway down the ship.
Yeah,
we've got two boats on either side of the ship.
That one is the genuine article. Okay, 27, and it was a rowing whaler. To power that, and it had a set of sails you could put up in it. The one on the other side, unfortunately, we couldn't get another boat, and it's just it came off one of the dredges over there, and it's a lifeboat. But what was over there was one of these, but a motorised version.
Okay, all right. In emergency circumstances, these would also be used as a life raft, but the ship obviously has life rafts as well.
Yeah, it's got what they call the Carly floats.
Okay.
They're all over the ship, yes, yeah. Look, we've got a few of them. They would have been piled up there on the forecastle. They would have tried to get their hands on as many of them as they possibly could. Anyway, we'll continue on down here.
All right, so we're still heading down towards the stern of the ship.
Right, boys.
Okay.
I need you to man the Bofors gun.
All right, so we're down at the stern of the ship, well, near the stern, and there's a Bofors gun on the platform here.
Here you go.
My sons are going to get up and give it a go. So it's an anti-aircraft weapon, range 7,000 metres, and a rate of 120 rounds per minute.
So once again, you had one guy in there, another guy jammed himself in there, and he dropped the clips of ammunition in there. But when you're firing at 120, you had another line of people bringing ammunition up.
So actually on the gun, a crew of 3,
plus people bringing
the ammo up.
Bringing ammunition up.
Okay. All right, so we're going down again onto, which deck do you call this one, Dick?
Call it, that's the main deck is 01 deck, and this one basically you could call it 2 deck.
All right, so we're going down another set of stairs.
Deck,
down to the 2 deck, which is closer to the waterline.
Right, Castlemaine did carry depth charges. And they would use that after they detected a submarine and that. Depth charge thrower here and there was one on the other side as well. And this is a replica. We had to have that built because there was nothing like that left in that. And the dip charge sat in there, and it sat in the thing called a yoke that was all the way down here. Before you fired it, you had a tool. You could actually set the depth that you wanted it to explode at. That would sit down here, and it had like a breakable lid there. And they put an explosive charge in there. You had a trigger, you pull it, that would go whack, and that would throw that 50, 60, 70 metres clear of the ship, and that it would sink down into the water and explode at the depth that you had set on it. They had depth charges they could drop off the back. That some of the Corvettes never had minesweeping gear at all. They just had more and more rails, and that they were predominantly set up to tackle submarines. But all of them had some sort of anti-submarine effort.
Okay.
Yep. What we got here, Castlemaine didn't use these. It used to get rid of them later on. This is a mine.
Right.
And but it's a very nice mine. It's an Australian mine.
Okay.
That was manufactured in the Ford Motor Company in Geelong. That knocked up 17,000 of them during the war. We dropped them all over the oceans. And then when the war ended, everybody obviously said, hurrah, hurrah, the war's over. Oh, dear. Now we've got to go and get them back.
So the Castlemaine was predominantly a Corvette, but a mine sweeper.
But she could do mine sweeping.
But also a mine layer as well. Is there a difference?
No. The ships were set up specifically to be a mine layer.
Right.
And we had a ship that was called the Bungaree, and she used to come down to Point Wilson down near Geelong, load up with 1,000 or so mines, sail up north and drop them all over the place.
Okay. Yeah. So what we're looking at now is just an example of an Australian mine. Right.
Yes, yeah. And if we pop down here.
So we're heading.
Well, we're now on what we call the quarter deck.
The quarter deck.
The quarter deck. Yes. Yeah.
Do you think there are still some of those mines out there?
Look, probably. Look, they would have all rusted through by now. They'd be laying on the bottom of the ocean, and they were pretty safe. But they still tell us, even if you find one, even if you think it's pretty safe, it's not a good idea to fiddle with it.
That's the podcast for today. The website for HMAS Castlemaine is www.hmascastlemaine.org.au. And if you're ever visiting Melbourne, it's well worth a visit. Thanks to Dick Budzieny for his time to take us through the ship. We're keen to hear your feedback, and if you're listening to us via iTunes or other podcast apps, please leave a review. Your reviews help others find our podcast. And you can help support this podcast via Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. The links are on our website and Facebook page, and your support helps us with the production of this podcast. Thanks for listening.